hours, and open 24 hours.
Yeah.
And now Dark Light, so science fiction,
Yeah.
bit of a sort of a shift. So tell us about where this one came from.
Well, I wanted to do a different movie that I've done 3 like slasher movies in a row, and I wanted to do something different. And I had this script which was called The Devil Is Real, and the producers really liked it, but they didn't want to do a demon movie. And I'm like, well, I don't really like demons either. What do you think about this monster type thing? And they're like, oh, we love it. And so I'm like, okay. And I had my Aaron Sims, he's a designer, he designed what the Incredible Hulk looked like. I went over his house and I was like, this is kind of what I want him to look like. And he's like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then he sent me this picture and I'm like, oh, dude, you're a way better drawer than I am. And it looked awesome. And so then I showed them to the producers and they're like, okay, we're done, let's do it. And so we shot the movie in Tbilisi, Georgia. We were actually shooting it at this time last year.
Yeah.
And it was a great journey, but I wanted to do something more sci-fi, just different than I'm usually, branch out a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. And you chose Jessica. Why? And why did you choose this one, Jessica, as well?
It's an interesting story, actually. I had a call from my agent. I was in Greece at the time, and on a boat for a 40th birthday on some yacht. And she was like, you need to read this now and then Skype the director. And I was like, okay, like it's 9 o'clock at night. I read it and I Skyped you and you're like, yeah, it's an offer. It starts on Monday. So I had 24 hours prep, which was intense, but also in a way like kind of a good thing because Annie doesn't have, she's thrown into the deep end. And I thought it's kind of good to be thrown into, like why not?
Yeah, she's scapping me from a boat. I'm like, come on, it's going to be great. We're going to go Monday. It's going to start Monday. It's
because
Friday.
Being a mother is, a very new thing for me.
Yeah.
It's not something I've ever done. I mean, something I'm doing at the moment, I'm playing someone who's 19. And so being a mom I'm 27. So it makes sense. I could have a child.
Yeah.
But it was something that I really was like, okay, this would be a cool thing to kind of experience and find my footing in. And I had a great time.
But why wait so long? I don't understand why you wanted. In 2 days' time, you've got to start. I mean, what was all?
A lot of people had a problem going to Tbilisi, Georgia.
Yeah.
And so we had some like complications, and then like I was sitting there and I was like thinking of Vanessa. I'm like, oh man, Jessica's great. But would that be weird to get both of them from Leatherface? And I'm like, nah. So then I called up my casting agent. I go, will you see if she will do it? And then she called her, and then we had this great Skype meeting. And I'm like, oh yeah. It was hard getting a little girl to go to Tbilisi, Georgia either. She didn't show up till later either because people really don't understand where it is.
Yeah. Did you do Leatherface there though, or was that
Yeah,
Serbia?
in Bulgaria.
Oh right, I knew. God, all these Eastern European places now they keep using.
Yeah.
Well, is that solely because it's cheap? I know you could actually get.
Dude, they built me a house in 2 days, like 2 weeks. Like they drove us out to a cornfield. It's because it's a movie that takes place in the Midwest. And they go, where do you want the house? I'm like, I can buy the house anywhere. And I'm like, I want it right there. And they're like, okay. And then they just started mapping it out. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then the interior was like, it was only one house in Tbilisi, Georgia that would fit a farmhouse in freaking Mississippi. So, and they did a really great job. They did so good.
Wow.
And they
Because
just,
the interior was different to the exterior.
Yeah.
We filmed in different places, but I think it really works.
yeah, it was, they were just, I couldn't even thank them even more. The crew was just amazing. Like we have this scene where there's a hole in the ground and she's, not a spoiler, she pulls it up and she digs the shotgun out, right? And they're like, and when on the day of shooting, I'm like, hey, where's that hole? And she's supposed to get the gun out of the ground. Oh, we can't do that. And I'm like, and I go to the main guy, the main production guy, and I'm like, hey man, there's supposed to be a hole in the floor. And he goes, oh, let me go get my buzzsaw. So he just got a buzzsaw. just started
such a cool
doing
shot,
it.
'cause they
It's such a
actually
cool
made
shot.
Right under the floorboards, made like a little trap door where I just open it, and it's kind of you shot it from above.
Yeah,
and
we
like,
got-
take
we
out
got
all the
crane, we
guns,
got
and
it.
they've got like the bullets and
Right.
money. And
Right.
they had a quick turnaround there.
Yeah.
They were on it.
They were really great.
Was there a kick and a scramble making it? I mean, did you have was it a rush shoot or did you have
Yeah.
a good amount of time?
No, she got up to speed really quick, and then the first couple of days you're always getting your footing about where we are. But then once you hit your floor, once you hit the ground, you just start going. The great thing about it was that we had to sort of move fast. We shot it in 22 days, and we had a Steadicam operator. And he was so freaking good. I went to the producers. I go, oh, can we? We were only supposed to have him for 8 days, and I go, can we have him for 17? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, thank you, because it's going to make us move like 10 times faster.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was just fantastic. He was, wasn't he? Yeah.
Really, I've
like he
never
chased her
worked
through
with
corn and all that stuff, and it was windy, and it was really windy when we were doing it. So.
And also really hot.
Yeah.
It was hot.
As opposed to Open 24, which was deathly
Freezing.
cold.
I mean, talk a bit more about the alien look. I mean, the concept of this. I mean, okay, dark light gives it away slightly, but I mean, it's a case of, I mean, you obviously had a budget to do it, but you know that can often turn sort of really quite, you know, not so great. But
Well,
these look good.
Oh, thanks. I always wanted to do a man in suit. I'm a big man in suit kind of guy. And so, like, when I was designing it, I was like, I wanted to do something original that we haven't really seen before. And humanoids are something that we really don't touch upon. So, like, I sort of, like, thought of him as, like, underground dweller, and I had, like, this, spoiler, he's got this light on his head. And then when I was showing my daughter, she's like, oh, yeah, it looks scary, Daddy. And then, like, the kid came over, her friend came over, she goes, come here, look what my daddy's doing. And so we were looking at, like, they were doing templates of him walking and stuff like that. And the kid just looks and goes, flashlight monster. And I go, that's a great title for him.
Yeah.
And so, and that's when I went to Aaron. I want somebody that, you know, that can be in a suit, but also we do some CGI with, because he has this energy where he sucks the energy out of kids. And yeah.
So you had that to react to then? You weren't
Yeah.
just he was actually in a suit,
Yeah.
you know, and you could react properly rather than just have this sort of nothing.
Yeah, Weston was there
And
a
he was
lot.
awesome.
Weston, and he's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, because the suit, you know, it takes 3 hours to get into, it takes 2 hours to get off, and he can't eat, he can't go to the loo, he can't do anything, and he'd be fine on set for 12 hours without doing any of that.
Yeah. Dude, we worked 12-hour day.
we're
And I
working
look
on
over, I
it
go,
here.
how you doing? He goes, I should shoot the fucking movie. I'm like, I go, okay, I'll see you in a bit.
It's like one day he was going like this, and water was coming out of his fingers. And I said, what is that? And he's like, it's my sweat.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, right.
But
he
he
was
was,
such a trooper, and he had all these kind of movements. We had him down on the ground, kind of doing all this, you know, crawling and screeching. He does all the screeching.
yeah, he does all the
Nothing-
screeching in the movie.
nothing
He did
is-
all what the creature sounds like.
Yeah.
Later on, we added some, you know, pig noises and other stuff underneath them.
Pig
But
noises.
we did pig noises. So, but I don't know. I like shooting movies in different places so that everybody becomes like a family. Like we all stayed at the same hotel. We all went out to dinner together. We all drank, you know.
Oh, we had
And she had
jail.
questions for me, and she would like email me, you know,
Yeah.
questions
Sure.
about things. And it gives you that sort of camaraderie that LA doesn't, because everybody's so spread out.
Sure.
And it just shows up to set.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's all about your reactions,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, was that quite difficult to keep it at that certain level all the time?
Yeah.
You can tell.
It was tough, but you know, I think with the time that I had coming into it, it was a real challenge to find all that emotion. And actually, weirdly, looking back and watching it, I kind of feel there are times where I'm too emotional.
Right.
And you know, for me, this project, out of anything I've ever done, has been the biggest learning curve, because you know, you've got to map it out. You've got to kind of find a way, a feeling to it. And luckily I had you to discuss that with, but when you're working with a kid and you're upstairs, and so many of the shots actually filming were very segregated. So walking up to the door and then opening was a completely different scene, and knowing where you are emotionally in that point is, you know, you had such a great tab on everything, because I think for me it was such a whirlwind of going, we're shooting this, we're shooting that. Like sometimes I'd come on set and didn't know what we were doing.
Freaking 70 setups in a day. You know,
But in
but
a way, it's a blessing as well, because especially when you have to be that emotional on set, you don't want to have to sustain that for such a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and you would always communicate with me, like, how long do you have? And I was like, it'd be really great if we could go now. Like, I've only got so much, because it's, you know, we're working.
yeah, I always give them the
hour
option. Do
days.
you want to go or do you want to go first? And then we always, you know, because she, that way she could do the emotion, get the emotional scene out, and then, you know, we could do the coverage on the other person, because it's hard for her to keep up that energy, because she's on screen the whole entire time. A lot like Vanessa was in Open 24. She's on screen the entire time.
No, I mean,
So-
you know, it's a remarkable piece of work. I mean,
Oh,
you do
thanks.
it really well, because essentially you are just in the house, aren't you? Essentially, so,
Yeah.
but it really works. I mean, if
Yeah.
you can pull that off, you know, and have a creature there as well. I mean, you know, it's pretty good, I think. So you did a good job. I'm anxious to see what the audience think. It's going to be interesting
Yeah,
to see.
and it's just because it's a very different movie, and even when doing it, I'm like, this is a way different movie than I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because there's no I like beating people over the head, and you know, with hammers and stuff. So I'm just like, oh my god, those people are gonna be bored. I know there's not much blood. I'm like, oh my god.